Welcome to Trenchometry. If you've spent any time in or around the trenches, playing offensive line isn't just blocking, it is chess at light speed. You're controlling angles while a 280-pound defender tries to destroy your running back. Every snap, calculating leverage, mirroring footwork, and anchoring against pure violence. Miss one step and your franchise player gets flattened. We're here to discuss the most undervalued aspect of the game of football, the offensive line. Remember, you master the trenches, you win the war. My guest today started his college career at Montana State University, where he played all along the offensive line. He would go on to start 48 games in his career and collect a number of different recognitions for his hard work. He would be recognized as an honorable mention All-American, an academic All-District, a first-team All-Big Sky Conference, and a consensus first-team All-American. When he was finished in Montana State. As an unsigned rookie, he would earn a roster spot with the New Orleans Saints as the only undrafted free agent in the 2022 class. He would spend some time with Indianapolis Colts and San Francisco 49ers before stepping away from the professional ranks. Now he wears three hats as the director of football operations for Training House, which is under the Twin Cities Orthopedic umbrella, and is an official partner of the Minnesota Vikings. He also acts as the director of football operations for Line of Scrimmage, which is an extension of Training House, focusing on developing offensive line and defensive line talent from youth levels through high school. The third hat is with Brute, a program started by former professional lineman Alex Boone, which focuses on developing college and professional linemen in the offseason. In what little free time he has remaining, he is developing an app where kids can get access to offensive line and defensive line specific drills. Today, I would like to welcome Lewis Kidd to Trenchometry. Lewis, welcome. So glad that you're here.
Thanks for having me, Paul. Super excited to be here today.
All right, so let's go back to Montana State there. We were talking before we started, and I made the mistake of saying Montana without the state, and I got chastised, which is fine. I completely understand that. So did you grow up in Montana? What took you to Montana State?
I did not. I actually grew up in Minneapolis, born and raised, played football since third grade, always been a big guy, always been a big kid, so played on both sides of the line my entire career. The most skill I ever got out to tight end, and that was pretty cool for a little bit, but found my home very quickly in the trenches. So started out, I played at a Catholic school, a small Catholic school in Minnesota called Totino Grace. Played 4 years there, and then went on to get a scholarship from Montana State. It was kind of a crazy whirlwind. Part of the reason why I do what I do now is I had no idea about the landscape of college recruiting and what that entailed. And I mean, I was blessed to receive scholarships, but I had no idea. I got my first offer from the University of South Dakota, and I got the letter in the mail and was like, I need to have this to go play at one of these schools. Somebody needs to want me to come play for them. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, I see what's going on. I need to start going to camps and start doing training and so I was a little bit behind the eight ball, but blessed enough. Again, God blessed me with good size from an early age. So I think that was obviously that helps in the recruiting front. And I produced on the field when I needed to. And yeah, so I kind of started doing the camp circuits, all that stuff. Was turned down by a lot of teams. Was kind of told they don't think I have what it takes to play at the next level. And I ended up getting offers from South Dakota, University of Montana, Montana State, and New Mexico. And I was a little bit of a rockhead, and I really, really, really thought and / wanted to play defensive line. I thought that was my calling. I thought I was the next whatever, insert the DN at the time there. I thought I was going to be that guy, and I had success in Minnesota. And I was kind of looking at these schools well, who's going to let me play D line? Because that's what I play and that's what I want to play. I kind of resented the O-line a little bit. I don't know what that was. I don't know why I really didn't want to play O-line, but so I was kind of looking at scholarships well, who's going to let me go play D-line when I get there? New Mexico was that school for a while, and I actually verbally committed to New Mexico over the phone. I remember being in the hallway of my high school and saying, hey, I want to commit. I want to come visit, all that stuff. I want to sign. And they had this, I can't remember who the coach was at the time, but they had a rule in place, a little old school rule that was you can't commit until you come visit the school and see what we're all about. So kind of a God's blessing a little bit, because it ended up not working out where I couldn't go out to visit them. They had filled up on scholarships before I had got on my official visit. And I was actually secondary going to go to Montana, University of Montana. We had a linebackers coach. His name was Ty Gregrack. He was the linebackers defensive coordinator at University of Montana. Recruited me hard. Great guy, great family. I got stuck in Missoula on my recruiting trip, did something. They messed up our flights. So me and the few other guys that were on a trip, we all got stuck in the airport for like, I mean, some guys it was like a couple hours. I was one of the guys that was like 8 hours. So I just, I'm ready to put my headphones in and take a nap in the airport. And I get a call from Ty Graygrack, and he's like, "Hey, I heard your flight got delayed. Let me come pick you up." Picked me up, got me 5 guys, brought me to the office. We watched Sunday football together. Like, I was like, wow, this is awesome. Like, he's going above and beyond. And we really developed a relationship. And it was awesome. And then I'm kind of, as I'm making this decision, kind of figuring out where I want to go with that relationship I built, I was kind of leaning towards Montana. And then, like, all of a sudden, I get news on my social medias that Ty Graygrack's leaving Montana and he's going to
Oh,
Montana State. And I'm like, okay, well, I don't know much about Montana. I know that that's a huge rival. What's going on? What's the deal? And it kind of went radio silence for a few weeks. So I'm like, okay, do I have a scholarship? Do they still want me at Montana? Whatever. A couple weeks later, he calls me and he's like, I want you to come with me at Montana State. We'll let you play defensive end. I want you to come out here and visit. I was like, I have no problem going out there and taking a visit. So went out there, and Jeff Choate was the head coach at the time. It was his first year with the new staff, and I fell in love right away. It felt different than the other visits I'd been on, and it just felt like home. So the minute I got home, talked to my parents on Sunday night from the trip, and called them back that night and committed. And I was all on board. I got the idea that I was going to play D end, and it was awesome. So fast forward, I show up to campus to play defensive end. We have a ton of injuries, so there was like I was pretty close to playing as a true freshman just because we didn't have bodies. I mean, I to the point where like we were at the first game. I think we were playing Idaho when they were still FBS, and I was getting like our DNs went down. There was somebody who was hurt, and then somebody's helmet came off, and like I was getting the play call from the D coordinator to bring into the defense and go play DN. And this was at the time when you played one snap that burns your
yeah,
red shirt.
that was
So
it.
I'm getting this play call like, holy shit, here we go. And as I'm taking the step on the field, the guy who was getting his shoulder worked on comes running out and saves me. And I just like kind of faded back into the crowd. Away. I'm like, all right, I know how important a red shirt is, so I better make sure I stay away from the coaches a little bit. And then
Yeah.
ended up redshirting that year, and they gave me crap all the time. It was like, we told you you're going to play DN so we could get you here. Like, we knew you were going to play offensive line at some point. And I kind of had a feeling, but I was like, let me see what I can do at DN. Well, I was I was I was on offensive line by the spring. So it was a pretty quick transition for me. I got to play some good scout team, got to give some good reps to the O-line. I remember the day we did, it was kind of towards the end of the season. We didn't have a great first year when I was there, and we were doing one-on-ones, and they were like, "Hey, just for shits and giggles, come do an offensive line rep versus this O
Yeah.
lineman who's trying to play DN." And I'm like, "Okay, sure." And I went, did well, and they're like, "Oh yeah, that's kind of what sealed your fate." And I'm like, "Oh man, I should have thrown that rep." But no, it was from that point on, it was like I was enthralled with offensive line. It took me a while to figure it out, I would say, but ended up kind of getting thrusted into that starting spot at a young age of
Mhm.
2017 as a redshirt freshman, and kind of took over and never really looked back. Obviously, had some bumps and bruises in between and some ups and downs, but from that point on, I was able to start every game and kind of take over as key cog in the offensive line, and
So
in the offensive line that ran the ball pretty heavily, so it was fun.
so when you get out there, you have this kind of a shock to you. You switch over, you find this, you have some aptitude for it, right? And you played a little bit in high school. You did play offensive line in high school?
Yep, yep, did play a
Okay.
little bit, played as a freshman, then, I was hurt my sophomore year, didn't really play it as a junior, and then senior year, I had to play both sides, had to
Doing
help
both
out
ways.
on
Okay.
defense, so
So there you did
I'm
have
back
some you had some skills in your
a
bag
little bit,
from
a little
back
bit.
in the
I
day,
I
but
wouldn't say a ton, I would say I was far behind the curve, so to speak, when I first started playing. I played basketball. I was, somewhat of an athletic guy. I could move my feet pretty well, and
mhm.
it kind of all just it pointed to offensive line. I had a big frame. Like I said, when I got to Montana State, I was only 265, so I had room to grow. I wasn't super strong when I got there, and it built up strength and all that stuff, and it all kind of came to fruition and started pointing the right direction. And then I remember being like a sophomore maybe, and hearing some like articles like, well, or hearing some podcasts about Montana State, and they were like, well, if there's anybody with NFL talent or size, it's this Lewis Kidd guy from Minnesota. And I was
Hmm.
like, whoa, like people that's crazy. I guess I might have an opportunity to do this if a couple
Yeah.
people are already talking about it. So yeah, at that point I kind of remember just being like, okay, well, if I'm in this and I'm starting and I'm an offensive lineman now, like it's time to dive fully into it. So started growing the
So
beard out, started growing the hair super long, started hanging out the offensive line and shooting guns and you know, eating like crazy, and
ordering
it just kind
pizza.
of yeah, just kind of became like a natural thing for me. So
What would you say is your number one asset that made you a phenomenal offensive lineman?
I don't know if I'd say phenomenal.
Well, I mean,
I think what that helped me
you
was
played
my
at the
leg.
next level, so there's some talent there that a
uh,
lot of people don't have.
no, I would say like my arm length helped a ton.
Mhm,
I have long arms. I got a long reach, pretty decent like hand strength. So once I got hands on, like there was, I was pretty confident that that block was gonna be kind of shut down at that point. And then I would just kind of say my ability to kind of to learn and figure stuff out as I
okay.
play. I think that's probably the biggest thing for sure.
And then I'm assuming you were probably very coachable if you were moving over and you started right
Yes,
away.
yes,
You're gonna
that's
absorb a bunch.
yep, had to, yeah, that was what I was preached to, that was what I was told is be coachable, be flexible, play every position, so that was something that I took a lot of pride for, and obviously playing all across the board on the O-line, like, it benefited me. Sometimes I was a little jealous of those guys that got to just play right guard for their entire career,
Mhm.
really kinda hone in on that one thing, but I think it overall made me a smarter player and put me in some different situations that challenged me and allowed me to kinda grow through that and help my overall skill in offensive line for sure.
I know that when I was a young player, they cross trained me. I played guard. I played all along. I had game starts at center, tackle, guard, and tight end. In my last year there, I couldn't keep my weight up. They moved me to tight end, and they said if you can catch, if you can do this, you can play. But if you can't, you're going to
Yep.
sit over here on the sidelines. So I was like, all right, let's give it a whirl. Better than getting beat up at 248 pounds as a right guard. I would have
Yeah,
been one big
definitely,
bloody puddle.
definitely.
Did you find yourself as you moved along line? I as a freshman in the spring of my freshman year, I'll never forget this. They put me at center, and we had our trap call, if I remember correctly, was I don't remember the formation, but it was 130 and 131. And on 130, I had the back block to the left, and on 131, I had the back block to the right.
Yep,
And they get up to the line of scrimmage and they give me a three play. We're going to run this, this, or this, and it was like 130, 131, or something else.
yep.
And I could, for the love of everything holy, I couldn't keep things straight when I got up there. I had to snap the ball, remember what the snap count was. Did you find yourself getting confused when you were going across all these positions, or did you have it locked down? You were
All
smarter than
no,
me on the
no, no, no,
on the draw.
all the time confusion, especially early on. And, you know, you're playing and it's like, "Okay, I just earned a starting spot and I'm trying to prove myself," and you start overthinking, it's like, "Well, I
Mhm,
gotta do this, this, and this on this play," and then I mean, and guys gave us crap, and I had another guy, Taylor Tuiasosopo that I play with, he came in
mm,
with me as a freshman, and we both kinda jumped into the roles as young guys at the same time, and we both ended up playing guards together at our redshirt freshman year. And I don't think it was more than once, but definitely for sure once we had a play called where we were pulling guards and
oh,
only one of us was supposed to pull and somehow like worked out seamlessly. I think we ended up getting like 8 yards on it, but I pulled and I see him cross right in front of me and I'm like, uh-oh, one of us is messed up here. Got to just run what I'm running. And
mhm.
I think I ended up being right. I don't know. I don't remember, but probably
Well,
a
I'm sure
really
he'll
good
tell you. If he
correction.
hears this, I'm sure he'll contact you and let you
Yeah,
know that
right,
it was
exactly,
right.
and he definitely will, he definitely will, but,
Not like an offensive lineman to let anything go and,
right,
someone be
exactly,
wrong
no,
or right in the story.
yeah, no, but tons of things like that, and not just me, like, I have a ton of stories like that and, you know, a ton of good guys that it's like it's kinda just, like, funny, like, it's like, yeah, it's like the easiest thing in the world, and you just mess it up, and it's like, "Oh, well, my brain just turned off right there,"
Yeah.
or, you know, "Hey, it was a full slide to the left, and I went the opposite way and just
Mhm,
forced my tackle, and now like so not funny at the time, definitely, you know, especially when you're getting an earful, but
mhm.
looking back on it, it's just like goofy stuff like that. It's just like that's what football is. Guys are gonna mess up, you know, you're gonna make mistakes, but having those guys and those coaches around you that support you to kind of like, okay, come on, you're better than that. You know, you can figure
Yeah,
that out. It kind of just allows you to like, okay, like I need to relax and not overthink this. Like and if I'm confused, ask. Like that's the
yeah.
biggest thing. Just, you know, make sure you're asking questions.
You
So
gotta know which wingman to talk to, though. You don't wanna talk to
exactly.
this. You gotta know the guard of the center of the
Exactly.
tackle is the guy you
Yep.
need to ask.
Well, funny enough, I played right tackle next to one of our guards, Zach Red, who was a stud of a lineman for us. Played center, played guard. He's from Idaho. And he was actually deaf in his right ear. So, I'm at right tackle, he's at right guard, and I'm talking to him all the time about, hey, watch this, or hey, this it. And he's just dead stared, can't hear a word. I'm
Yeah.
like, all right, there's a couple times where I'm like, how do I get to the other side of your ear, man? How do I alert you?
Yeah.
Hitting him on the side, letting him like it's so, but different challenges like that are what make the game fun. And something we always gave him crap about too. But those are some great memories that I have, and play with a ton of talented guys. And that's kind of the cool part about playing offensive line is like there's all these interchangings. You play next to somebody one game, you move over to the other side the other game. You got different nicknames for what you call it, like your
Yeah.
duo group or whatever. It just makes it so much fun.
It's funny you mentioned that. I had a left tackle. This is first years down at Naples, and he played left tackle for us. He was always late off the ball, and his name was Daryl Heaston, and he was always late off the ball. And we were joking, and one day I said, Daryl, I'm gonna call you Daryl, because every time I call you, I got to call your name twice. I said, this is ridiculous, man. You got to get off the ball. You're half a step behind everybody. So we go through 4, 5, 6 weeks. I don't know. It's a while. Finally, I'm like, dude, it's like you're deaf. And he goes, yeah, coach, I am deaf in my right ear. We had to play left tackle. He couldn't hear the daggone quarterback. so, so once we
That,
moved him to the other side, it all went well. He was getting off the ball just fine, but
there
he
we
never
go.
told anybody he was deaf in his right ear either. Same type of thing.
Oh, that's hilarious. That's
But
hilarious.
that's just like an offense lineman just shows
Oh yeah.
up and is like, oh, well, whatever. I got to do
Yep.
this.
Yep.
That's really funny. So I struggled with that. Sounds like you kind of struggle with it at times, as all those young guys struggle with it. And I think you bring up a good point there. You got to ask, and that's just the guys beside you and or the coach. Be like, coach, you're not going to screw up more than once or twice, but if you're getting ready to, don't waste the rep. You only get so many reps during the
Right.
week. And if you
Exactly.
waste it because you pull and you got ships, at least you guys were ships passing the night. You didn't ring the
Yeah.
bell
Right.
together there on
Exactly.
each other's head.
Exactly.
That's scary. All right. So as you get into training your with House and Brute, and you're training these guys, what are some of the techniques or the attributes that you are trying to accentuate with these guys? What is it you're trying to develop first and foremost when you have those guys come in? And I'm assuming you're going to evaluate them a little bit or watch some film and have some idea. What
Yep.
is it that you're trying to get done first to help these guys out and improve their game?
Yeah, well, yeah, it's a deeper answer than you'd probably think, especially with just kind of the way Minnesota handles football a little bit. It's the way it's just always been, and it's like you start camp in August, and you play through championship. The semifinal game was last night, so the state championships are next weekend, and you play through November, and then it ends, and it's like, all right, we'll see you for a week in the summer, and then the next time will be for camp. And
Hmm.
a lot of other states have spring ball and workouts and mandatory and there's just not a lot of there isn't any of that in Minnesota. So we kind of fit into this niche world of like, hey, coaches, send us your offensive linemen in the off season. We'll be in full communicate, like we'll talk to you, we'll help you, we'll strategize the best plan for this kid in the off season together. Maybe this kid's a freshman and he needs to start for you on varsity next year. Well, let's talk about what he needs to work on and how we can get him better. But usually in general, it starts with footwork for sure, pad level, huge. We emphasize our first two steps and staying low. We think if we can build quick first two steps, we can kind of build off that and get to 3, 4, and continue to force the pad level.
Hmm.
So a lot of it is that footwork, and not just like taking the step, but like taking it in the right way and taking it with the correct kind of urgency and speed. Because a lot of these kids, it's like, all right, show me your first two steps. And it's like, whoa, okay, that's awesome. But you got to move 10 times faster than that in a game. And I think a lot of that kind of kids don't understand how to train when they're not in the pads. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like if the kid's not right in front of me, I'm not going to go all out. And that's something that I even it's hard. It is hard to do. And especially in an off-season setting when you're in a t-shirt and shorts and shoes. So kind of getting these guys to realize like, hey, if you put yourself in that mode of like, there's a guy in front of me, this is the block to win state. What is your footwork going to look like? Show me that. That kind of helps them like, oh, okay, this I need to be doing this full speed, because we do a lot
Yeah.
of slow breakdown of like, okay, here's the first step, the second step, the third step, and then we climb and we get our hips in. But it all starts with that first two, and how quick you're getting off the ball is dependent on a lot of different things, but those first two steps are so important. And then the other thing is like working on these kids' stance. A lot of stances get a little wonky,
Hmm.
and understandably, coaches don't have enough time to sit and coach on the little details of the stance and why we do what we do. And so it drives me a little bonkers. Sometimes I go to games and some coaches are their world is let whatever's most comfortable, which I get, but then you get a right guard in a left guard stance. And it just
Mhm.
looks me, I'm just like, it drives me nuts. But again, these coaches don't have enough time to really coach on a lot of the stuff that they probably want to. And so it's like, hey, if I can just get this kid down and low, it's good. The other
I gotta
thing that
think
goes
you
into it, what'd you say?
go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, the
Finish
other
your
thing
thought.
that goes into it is Minnesota is not the most pass heavy state as
Mm,
far as high school football. 90% of schools, I don't know, I'm just pulling that number out, but like 90% of schools are going to run the ball 90% of the time. It's going to be a quick game if they do pass or maybe a boot or a play action or something, but it's there's not really a drop back game in Minnesota as much as some other states. So a lot of these kids come in with aspirations of wanting to get earn scholarships and go to these camps and turn eyes and turn heads. And I'm like, well, we need to teach you how to kick step. Like
mhm.
that's how you're going to move as an offensive lineman at the next level. That's how coaches are going to coach you. And a lot of kids don't know how to do it just because they're not required to. And so we get kids in and we're like, hey, we know you're not going to go past 100 times this season, but if you are really looking forward or you have that scholarship from Minnesota or you going to NDSU or you have an Iowa, whatever it is, even Division 2, wherever you're going, you are going to be required to pass set like this. A
Yeah.
45-degree angle most of the time. You have to know what a vertical set is. You have to have a jump set. But most of the time these kids can't kick step. And so it's really going in and like it takes a minute. It takes a
Mhm.
couple some kids get it quicker than others. Some kids have done it before. Some kids have seen it and kind of modeled their game after it. But like it takes a little bit of like breaking down. Okay, hey, you're driving off this foot, you're catching with this foot, you're staying low, you got 60-40 weight, like all the little things that they don't necessarily hear every day that it's just ingrained at this point. That's all I heard when I started playing offensive
Yeah.
lineman. When you start pass setting is like all these little things that these kids don't know, and that we're just trying to give them the tools now that hey, even if you go into your senior year and you pass the ball 5 times the whole year, you might earn a scholarship. And now when you get to college, you understand that okay, when I pass set, I have to drive. I have to keep my weight low. I have to keep my chest up. I have to keep my hands ready to punch. Some of those things that are kind of critical at the next level that we kind of teach and give these kids the fundamentals. And then if they can, kind of get boosted up with that and feel confident to go do it in a game, that's all the better.
Yeah, I gotta think that somebody with your knowledge and expertise and skill set, having that experience to kinda pour into those kids because down here, I can go down the list and there's not a lot of head coaches in our area down here that are offensive line coaches or offensive line players themselves or have that experience, and
Mhm.
it's one thing to go to a clinic and sit down in a room and listen to a guy talk. It's another thing to read a book or watch a video, but if you've actually been in that pass stance and you know what it feels like, you can describe it a little bit better. You can see what that foot looks like in the ground when it's got the weight on the inside and you got your toes a little bit pigeon toed in so you can
Yep.
move a little bit better. And one of my former guests, Jared Southers, he says, you're not stepping, you're pushing.
Yep.
You're pushing. You use the word drive there. You're pushing
Yeah.
off that inside foot. You're not stepping with your outside foot. It's a different
Yep.
concept. And
Yep.
and
And it
that's
looks
those are
the same.
subtles.
And that's what's hard is it looks the same. If I
Exactly.
if I if I reach this right foot and pull the left foot on a right tackle stance, it looks the same if I'm doing a kick set. So
Hmm.
I get in front of the kids all the time. I'm like, tell me the difference between this and I do it right and this and I do it wrong. And they're like, oh, I don't know. It looks but that's different to me. That feels different. That it comes from I've gotten my ass kicked. I've gotten my butt
Mm,
kicked. I've lost reps. I've let up a sack. I've let up whatever it is,
yep.
and putting these guys like, here's how you can feel when that's not right. And here's the biggest part of I think the biggest part for any offensive lineman. I mean, I think most athletes in general is if you have the ability to self correct you can go a really far way. And you have to know what that means. Not just like, oh, I lost that rep, I got to be better. Why did I lose that rep? Well, when I took that kick, I felt this right foot come way underneath me and I actually didn't go very far. And then I ended up stepping underneath myself, opening my hip. Okay, next time I have to plan, get drive off the line. Like that's the stuff that the best guys that are playing this game and playing these positions, that's what they're thinking every time.
Yeah.
Even when they win reps, it's hey, okay, how can that be better? How can I okay, that didn't feel right to start. I ended up winning the block, but I think that can be better if I get my right hand in or if I really get my pad level a little bit lower. So I tell those kids all the time, and once we get you feeling this stuff, I don't have to harp on it every single time we do it.
That's right.
And you're going to start feeling it and be like, that wasn't right. I don't like it. And that's the coolest part for me is seeing these kids kind of flip the switch and the light bulb turns on. They're like, oh, that's what you mean by, you know what I mean? And that's the
Yeah.
cool for me when they kind of start to understand that stuff.
I think you said a key phrase there. The losing of the rep
Mhm.
is a big. You're never as good as you look when you win, and you're never as
Yep,
bad as you look when you lose. But you learn a lot when you lose because you're like, I can't do that again. I gotta feel that differently. And so when
exactly.
you're losing the rep, you feel what went wrong. And I always taught my guys. I always coached with the why you failed, so that when they're
Mhm,
on the field, I can say, look, if you're spinning off the block, you're run blocking a guy, and you're getting twisted, your base is too skinny. You need to
mhm,
widen your base a little bit and
mhm.
and you're getting too skinny with your feet. If you're getting stoned and you can't go anywhere, you're not getting any push, you're too tall. You're
Yep.
on your tiptoes. You got to get a little bit wider and
If you're
get the
bringing your
turn
hips too
those
soon, you might be trying
exactly.
to bring your hips before you've generated any power to bring those hips, and
Exactly.
that's another area where I see kids struggle is they see the drills, right? And they see it, they see the bring your hips, the pop your hips, the drive your hips, and I have to tell a lot of kids, I'm like, that's the finishing position.
Mhm.
You can't start like that because if I start like that and throw my hips right away, I'm standing up tall and I'm exposing my chest. I have to stay low and meet this D lineman who's trying to get into my chest.
Yep.
I need to gut him out of that pad level and lift him slowly and gradually. Then I can bring my hips and roll through. But there's so many things like that that kids just see and are like, oh, that's what a lineman does. They just do this. It's like in theory, yes. I wish we could all just do it like that
If it
easily,
was that
but
easy.
exactly, exactly. There's some guys on the other side of the ball that makes it a little bit difficult to do.
Right. I mean that's we always got a lot of credit for being really good at doing halftime adjustments. I always said it's not really us doing adjusting. It's teaching and coaching those guys so that they by the end of the first quarter, they've already gone through all those whys. They figured out, all right, I gotta get lower, I gotta do this on this kind of block, I gotta approach
Yep.
it this angle, and on this kind of block, I gotta approach it angle. So it's all like you've got all these puzzle pieces and you just dump them out and you start putting the puzzle together and you gotta get the framework down.
Right.
Once you get the
Exactly.
framework established, you can start working on the piece of the puzzle. And the team that gets those puzzle frameworks down quicker is probably going to end up winning the game. And so if the guy's figuring out how to do the blocks that you need to do, and he's coming off the field and saying, Coach, we can't run this play this way. We got to do it that way so I can do this. So then the second half is just do a lot more of the do's and a lot less of the don'ts. And you
Yep.
look like a mad scientist out there, but
Yeah.
it's really you're just kind of it's a work in progress. It's a bunch of if then statements that you're saying, okay, if that doesn't work, then we'll do this. And so that leads you to if you replicate that enough and you get that process down, you can make a lot of hay off of that with the offensive lineman knowing what they're doing wrong and being able to fix that and then letting you know. And now you have all the things that work and you just put them all together a lot more often and you look
100%.
like a genius. But it's
Yeah.
it's not genius as
Not
much as
rocket
just
science.
smart.
Most of the
Yeah.
time, it's not rocket science. There's
Yeah.
not, and that's the other thing that's kind of funny is like this game has been played for too long, and this position is there's not a ton of new things coming out about, you know what I mean, about offensive line play. Now,
Hmm.
plays and schemes and stuff that there's always going to be a mind who comes in and thinks of something different and can get a receiver out on a different way or whatever, hide a running back or whatever. But like at the end of the day, inside zone is going to be inside zone all the way. Wide
Yeah.
zone is going to be all wide zone. Pass pro is going to be pass pro. We can add in little flares, but like most of that stuff is already in place, and there's not really. I'm not. I don't. I'm not going to be a trailblazer in the offensive line community as far as drills and things like that. I'm just going to take what I know works. I'm going to take from other great people. That's the other beauty about social media and stuff is like you can see drills where it's like, okay, I can see what you're trying to do. I don't think I do it that way, but I can see what you're trying to get.
Hmm.
Or you see drills where it's like, wow, that's really good. I'm gonna steal that. I'm gonna take that. And I hope that that's kind of the mindset for everybody and anybody who comes across like our page or whatever is like we don't have exclusive rights to offensive line drills or
Yeah.
defensive line drills. And we're actually in the business of sharing and cultivating this community because I mean you look at like what's happening in the league linemen and D line, offensive line, D linemen, they're coming together and they're sharing and they're starting
Hmm.
to talk because the best defensive linemen are getting together and they're going to talk about ways to beat you. Well, you need to talk about ways to defend that and how what have you done to beat them? And now you
Yeah.
need to tell me. And that's kind of the coolest part. I think again, trying to develop this culture, and I think this podcast is one of those things. Like it's amazing what you're doing and like building that community and building that like pride of playing offensive line, that it's not weird for me to pull 20 different guys from 20 different schools who all play right tackle and just work with those guys. You're not competing against each other right now. Even when you go out on the field, you're never lining up against each other.
Mhm.
You're all doing the same thing. So why wouldn't you all want to be playing at a high level? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like why shouldn't you give me a little bit of, and now obviously you're not going to sell out your teammates, but hey, I played against Max Crosby. Here's what he really loves to do. And here's how I defended that. Or, hey, I played against insert whoever. Hey, make sure you're aware of your right foot. I know sometimes you can drop that thing and that he'll eat that up all day. Like that's the
Yeah.
type of stuff that I try to encourage in our gym is like, be open, be communicators. Don't just sit there and if you see something, don't say anything. Like that's what it's all about. And that's how we all learn and grow.
Yeah. I like that. It's funny, I think the only thing that stops Max Crosby is a tattoo parlor. So if you could put one of those on the
Yeah,
sidelines, you
exactly.
might be able to
Exactly. There's
slow him
not
down a
much.
little bit.
There's not much.
It's funny you say that, the collaboration. I remember a few years ago, this has been a while ago, University of Miami lost to Ohio State in the, national championship game, and the AFCA convention was the next day, and Art Keough, the offensive line coach for Miami, was sharing, and of course, poor dude, he just lost a national championship game, and he's flying back to wherever we were to share with a bunch of knuckle draggers in a room about how to be better offensive line or whatever. So Ohio State just killed him, and they put a 6 eye or 7 technique on his tight end, and they couldn't block that guy. And so I remember towards the end of I raised my hand and said, "Coach, why didn't you just move the 7 down and go shoot a shoe with the tackle and make him a 5 technique?" And he goes, "Well, that guy was killing us." And wait a minute, what do you make him a 5 technique? What do you talk? And so he drew it up on the board, and he turned back, and he looked at me in the back of the room. He looked back at the board, and he's like, "Where were you last night?" Because that's kind of just what we did. Like someone shared that with us down the road, and we would get 7 techniques, and we would move them into 5s and make them 5s, and that way we could double team them and bump wall them down to the next level. And he hadn't nobody had ever shared that with him, or he hadn't thought about it from that angle
Mhm.
before. And you could see in his face he was just like, "We just lost the national championship game because if I'd
I didn't
talked to
have
you
it.
Friday night instead of Saturday,
Right.
we would have had a better shot." So not patting my back, but somebody had shared
No,
that
but
with me. I
I mean,
believe it
that's how
was.
it go I mean,
Yeah.
I first started training, after my pro day. When I first started training at Training House, that's kinda how I got attached to the gym. It's in my backyard in Minnesota, and it's like, it was Alex Boone's one of his it was, like, his first time kinda starting to train guys, and I remember training with, like, Cordell Volson, who's, the guard for the Bengals. He's out this year, but played at NDSU, and John Michael Schmitz and Joe Alt and all the like, kinda these guys that, like, and it was so cool to come in as a player and all of us are on different teams and have these different experiences and have heard different things. Like we're coached differently. We're coached to do the same thing, but
Mhm.
what your coach said might have actually helped me more, and what
Mhm.
my coach said might actually help you more. So that was kind of the coolest thing is like going through those drills, going through that work, and being like, why'd you do it? Why'd you do that? Well, my coach says if I get this and do this, then I have a better chance to do. Oh, okay, let me try that. Wow, I actually really like that. I think that works for me, or and
Yeah.
vice versa. Like it kind of becomes this collaborative space where you're sharing the knowledge and helping each other improve, even when you're not bumping heads. You know what I
Right,
mean? Like,
right.
and that was the coolest part to me is like, and it's kind of the philosophy I have with how we treat the high schoolers. Is I'm like, I'm gonna coach you a lot. I'm gonna be in front of you a lot, but I want our other coaches to coach you too. I don't want you to just be stuck in front of me because guess what? When you go to college, there's a high likelihood that your coach is not going to be the same for all 4 years. There's a high likelihood that you're not going to be learning from that same person every time. So you have to learn how to take in knowledge from different voices and make it work for you and
Yeah.
make it work for your play style.
I benefited from learning from watching. If I couldn't learn from observing, I would have never stepped on the field. Because if you think about it as an undersized guard or tackle, you're going to get 1 rep. And like I already said, I was confused on 99% of the time which way I was going because I think the spring of my freshman year, I had more reps in spring practice than any other offensive lineman on the team.
Yeah,
And when you're playing 4 positions, and they're resting the 5th-year seniors who are all Americans, and they don't want to get them hurt or whatever. And so I was the cannon fodder. But if I hadn't, that was it, man. I got all those reps, and they just did that because I was expendable.
right.
And now you put me out on the field once or twice. If I don't get a chance to learn through watching, I wasn't going to get a lot of chances. So I think that's
100%.
important.
And
All right.
I need to learn how to, you know, watch and take mental reps. Oh, this is the
Mhm.
biggest thing is, when I'm back there coaching and I got the 5 linemen on the line, we're talking about a specific scheme, and I look back and I see the other 5 just kinda
Yeah.
staring off base. It's like, all right, that's fine. Like, but if I have to coach this again, that's going to drive me nuts. Honestly, you should be sitting here locked in just like these guys, because at a moment's notice, this guy could turn an ankle and you're in. And you
Yeah.
don't want to be the guy who's, what do I do?
Yeah.
Because
You
I've been
might
that
get
guy. I've been that
yeah.
guy. And
You
I
might
didn't
get a
like it.
whistle off the back of the helmet is what might
Yeah,
happen
exactly.
if that's
Exactly.
your ears
Exactly.
might be ringing for a little while. That's for sure. All right. So, Lewis, what's like the top drill or 2 drills that you're gonna do with your offensive lineman to develop that pad level and your stance that you were talking about and that those first 2 steps, the explosion of the first 2 steps? Is there one specific or 2 specific drills that you're gonna use?
Yeah, I like to do the step progression drill. So whether it's outside zone or inside zone, you can get a towel, you can use a line, and I'll just use inside zone for example. So I tell our kids we want to try to gain ground with every step, right? We want to
Mhm.
drive our knees. This is obviously after we get them in a comfortable stance, squeezing the knees, knees inside the ankles, creating a V with our base, staying low, chest over knee as we come off the
Mhm.
ball, kind of giving them those little coaching points, giving them those little, hey, and the other thing I do is like I try to challenge them on aiming points because that's not coached a lot at the high school level either.
Mhm.
It's like, well, yeah, you're running inside zone, but depending on where you're running it is dependent on where you should put your aiming point. And so that kind of goes into it as well. But I really like it's kind of the step progression drill. So I've seen it, I just saw it on Instagram today actually, but getting your stance, you're loaded up, and on the cadence, it's hit, and you're taking that step, and it's the first 6-inch step, and you reset, and then it's that 6-inch step, and you reset. And I'm
Mhm.
taking you through that hit, hit, hit every time you're getting reset. Teaches that kid, hey, okay, I need to be quick to this, put this in the ground quick, and then I need to get reset. And I also think that helps for getting kids down into a stance quicker because a lot of
Yeah.
kids are like, oh, I'll just take my time and do, I gotta twist my hand. And it's like, you don't have time, dude. Like,
Yeah.
if the clock's running and we're in 2 minutes and you're taking 50 minutes to get down in your stance, it's gonna be bad. You're gonna be late off the ball, you might get a penalty, all that stuff. So teaching those kids that, hey, once that step comes in the mound, I'm reloading.
Yeah.
Okay. So we worked that a few times. Then we bring 2 steps. So now it's 1, 2. Hey, I should end almost in the exact same position where I started. I
Yes.
started with my right foot, my left foot's going every time gaining ground. I always use like the 6-inch step, heel to toe, so to speak. We want to gain some of that ground. If we get even with our feet, if I take this step and this step, we just lost a ton of power and it's going to be really hard to block from here.
Yep.
Probably going to fall step, probably going to move backwards. So get them going with that 1, 2, 1, 2. And then we bring it all the way through 1, 2, 3 and kind of let them climb. And then we'll add in the hands with that. So we'll bring the pads in front of them and we'll get 1 step, punch, 1 step, punch and step, punch and step. You're timing your punch with that first step. How quickly can you get your hand and your foot in the ground matched up? Not punch and then my foot hits the ground. I want that lined up at the exact same time because all that power you generated from that step is going to transfer through your body into that defender.
Technical difficulties here. We lost Lewis briefly. All right, so
I was like,
you're talking about getting your 3rd step down, and you want your punch to be simultaneous with the first punch with the first step coming down and your punch landing at the same time.
yep. So that was kind of something that I learned that I kind of picked up in New Orleans. Coach Doug Marone, old school coach, but like
Mhm.
super heavy on the fundamentals. And that was something that I was like, okay, like I wish I would have learned some of this stuff 2 years ago so I could come into the league with this knowledge, not like
Yeah.
learning it as I'm trying to earn a spot. But that was something he was super heavy on is, depending on what you're running, and depending on where this guy's lined up is when we are going to throw our hands, when we're going to punch. And that's another area that I think is just kind of undercoached overall in offensive line play is the hands and how to throw your hands correctly with, your
Mhm.
thumbs up with elbows down to generate as much power as you possibly can. And so we would do that drill all the time. It's like, okay, I got a tight technique on me. It's inside zone. Throw my hands and step. Throw my hands and step. We want to line that up with that first step and start to drive off the ball. Now you get that guy off the body. I might have to take 1, 2 and hit on the second step. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? And then now we get to wide zone, and now I have to carry him for 1, 2, and I might hit the third or whatever it is. So, kind of challenging these guys on where we line up the defender and kind of seeing how they carry their hands. Because if a lot of kids are wasting movement and they're cocking back with their hands or kind of creating this like bird wing effect, like
Yeah.
it exposes your chest. And I tell the kids all the time, like, if you don't protect your chest, this D lineman's going to put two hands in them and you're going to go backwards and it's not going to be a good block. So you
That's
have
right.
to protect your chest. And it's all about which one of us is going to get that first meaningful contact in this area first. And
That steering wheel.
exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's, I tell these guys all the time, like, there's a lot of similarities between O line and D line.
Mhm.
And main differences, we're a lot smarter, but
Goes
you
without
know,
saying.
we're all trying to get to each other's, that's the target area for us. That's where we control everything. So if you can get a strong, solid punch first on this guy's chest, you're going to win the battle 90% of the time.
Yeah, that reminds me of my freshman year going to study hall and running into one of our defensive tackles who was, this would have been his 3rd semester in study hall, and my freshman year, if you had a 2.0, you could get out of study hall. You didn't have to keep going to study hall. So
Yep.
so Dave was under 2.0 for the 3rd semester in a row, and as I walked in, I wasn't smart enough. I sat down and spent time with him, knowing not putting those pieces together, and, so Dave managed to take a pen cap, and we're talking, and right in the middle of the conversation, he kinda takes the pen cap and he twists it around his ear. He pulls out, there's a bunch of earwax on it. I'm like, "Oh, Dave," and he goes and licks it right off the pen cap. And I said, "Dave, what are you doing, man?" He's like, "Nah, I just want to know what it tastes like." And that's, I think, the difference between an offensive lineman and a
I,
defensive lineman.
I think you got to,
That
and I talk to my wife and kind of other people about this all the time is like, I tell her like, oh yeah, well, defensive lineman, you know, you got to have a screw loose a little bit. And then my wife comes back and says, you have to have a screw loose to play football, period. I'm like,
yeah,
yes, that's true for sure. So we all have the screw loose. I think the D line maybe just has like one or two extra screw loose because they're
yeah.
all. We had a D lineman. He was a great guy, funny, hilarious dude, but he was just like very silent, very kind of like to himself. And he transferred in, and we were kind of like, man, this kid's kind of interesting. Like he's kind of a funny guy. Like he does funny things, and you'd walk into the locker room, and he's in his tape and his gear and his gloves, and he's in the sink washing his hands with bars of soap to make his gloves not stink, and washing them with full gear. And it's like, hey, that's kind of weird. And then like we heard some stories about him like from his other schools that he would like walk around with a giant gallon sized Ziploc bag of like spaghetti and like throw it in his backpack, and then he'd be in class and would just like cut the edge of it and just kind of slurp it
Oh,
in like,
squeeze it out.
yeah, like a
Okay.
little Go-Gurt type of deal. And it's just
Yeah.
like, yeah, okay, I guess that's I would never do that.
No,
I've never seen something like that, but it's funny kind of the things you see in the locker room and amongst these guys, like so many characters. And
that's
I think
right.
you can walk into any locker room and like find the archetypes. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
there's DB group, there's the receivers, there's the O line, there's like they all have that personality, and that's kind of the funniest thing is like every team I went to is like, okay, that's that guy. I remember playing with someone like him. I remember playing with
Mhm.
like that guy acts the exact same as that other DB I used to play. Like it's so funny how so many similarities show up, and you can kind of see that when you're playing with different guys.
Agreed. So, what's one drill that you would say is overused? You just don't understand why. Like, why coaches continue to do it? Is there anything that sticks out in your mind as you just don't get it? It's not something that you see the value in?
It's a good question. Not
Some previous
necessarily,
answers.
not necessarily
Go
drill,
ahead.
and it's under like this one's hard. Like, there's a lot of drills that I've done, and then I was like, but I can see where they're coming from. But like, I can give you one that I just can't stand, and that's like pod work, and it is an important drill. But like the two O linemen and the D, like I just can't stand that drill as a player. I
Mhm.
understand why you need to have it. I understand you need to work double teams and all this stuff, but like some like depending on the D lineman you get and depending on your O lineman partner that you get, like I have always been like, man, I hate this. Or the offensive lineman or the offensive coach standing in front of you with the defensive lineman's back to him, and he gives you a run, a reach, or
Mhm.
you just have to guess, and it's like one on one, and you're just getting hammered. There's no
Yeah.
other. I'm like, okay, I see this, but like, there's gonna be a running back. I'm gonna have a guard. There's gonna be a line. Like, this guy's not gonna do this every. Like, I don't know. I try to avoid the drills that like heavily favor the D line, just because I'm like,
Yeah.
I always hated that.
I like watching these 5-on-5 drills where they have guys in t-shirts and shorts and they're pass full live go pass pro, which I think is an immediate disadvantage for the offensive lineman
Yes.
because the sweaty half shirt that the
Yep.
defensive lineman guy is wearing is no leverage
Mhm.
to touch or hit, or there's no surface area for you to put a hand on.
Yeah.
And then inevitably the gaps are about 7 feet wide in
Yep.
between each one of the guys. And of course, he's got a two-way go, so he can go inside or outside. There's no pass lane responsibilities for any of these guys going. And the poor
Yes.
offensive lineman's like,
Yeah.
what exactly am I supposed to do other than sit here and get punched in the throat 3 times?
Well, and funny enough, we, that that's kinda starting to pick up some traction, that 5 on
Yeah.
5 scene. And I used to see it and I was like, "This is dumb, this is stupid." But we kinda run some of those one-on-one type stuff, and I'm like, "Okay, like, it is a disadvantage for the offensive line 90% of the time, but if I can teach these kids to set and throw their hands and punch on this guy and they can win reps
Yeah.
in our underwear, he's gonna be a pretty dang good offensive lineman." So that's funny enough, that's actually something we're looking into potentially starting up our own kind of Minnesota 5-on-5 team to kinda go
I,
and
I do see the value in you can block a dude with your feet. You can
exactly.
pass block a guy with your feet. You don't need your upper body. And I think that if you are focusing on that through that drill,
Yes.
I think that's value.
Yep.
Value added for sure. I watched some of these things and I'm like, there's that kid's got no shot of moving his feet to get in
Mhm.
position to fend that guy off. And I
Even
guess
though
those
it
are the things that
always
I
ends in the tackling and the holding and the
yeah,
twisting and the torque, and that's the part that I hate. I'm like, "Okay, we're
yeah,
not gonna do any of that BS," but, like but that's what gets the clicks, this
yes,
tackle just buried this DN, and it's like, yeah, he was getting bull rushed and just hip tossed the guy into the quarterback that would have been there. I don't
yeah.
think that that's a win. Like
You're on your second string quarterback too because you just leg whipped your starter
exactly,
out with a
exactly.
MCL
Yep,
sprain.
exactly.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so we don't like the 2-on-1s and the 1-on-1s where the offensive lineman's at a disadvantage. We definitely agree on that one. That's anytime the offensive lineman's at a disadvantage,
Yeah,
we don't like those drills.
yeah,
So let's get into as we wind down here. Let's get into the focus on the character aspect of it because I think this is something that people don't have a very clear picture of and how entertaining an offensive line practices. I was thinking about it today. I was thinking about some of the movies, the football movies like Varsity Blues. Like who's the guy you remember? You remember the big offensive lineman
yeah,
dude from that movie because he's
Billy Bob or
Billy Bob. Yeah, he's funny. And remember the Titans and
yep,
the big dude that
yep,
goes to the black side of the cafeteria
yep,
and talks
yep,
to
yep.
everybody and he knows everybody
Yes,
and
starts singing in the
he's the guy that
lunchroom and yeah,
yeah, singing and he's carrying the one dude's mom on his back and he's the guy that everybody remembers. That's what offensive line practice is
mhm,
like. And there's no I it's funny to me. I remember and I can't remember which one of my players it was, but they'd always one of them had an attractive sister. So they're always like, "Hey man, set me up with your sister, set me up with your sister."
yes,
Which the guy's not going to do because
yes,
one, he knows you and two, you're probably 50 pounds
yep,
overweight and
yep.
not something that he wants to see his sister bringing home. But do you have any stories or insight into how entertaining an offensive line? And I can only imagine that at the next level, those guys, you guys spend so much time at the
Yeah,
facility and the NFL that I can only imagine that it's even more entertaining.
yeah,
And you got bigger toys and more money
yep,
and more everything for people to use and have at their disposal. So I can only imagine how fun those meetings are.
yeah. Oh, they're a ton of fun, and, it's crazy, like, how like you said, like, how much time you're spending with the same group of guys, and especially offensive linemen. Like,
Mm,
we are going to position meetings for 2 hours, and we don't get a special teams break because
mm-mm,
they need field goal once a week, and these guys like, the receivers and the running like, the quarterback, like, all get to kinda, like, intermix at some point, so it's just kinda like, "Put the O-line over there, we'll see you at practice." And even when we see you at practice, we'll only see you for about 30 minutes total of team stuff. You know what I mean? Like, other
mhm.
than that, we're kind of just like off doing our own thing. So you get to know these guys like probably more than you want to. And
Yeah.
like it's so funny to again, like you said, like you see the archetypes, you see these types of guys that are coming through and so many funny stories. One of the main ones that I think is probably one of the better ones I got is we were in Indy, we finished OTAs. Quentin Nelson, my guy, he's obviously one of the best guards in the NFL, has been that way for years and is just an absolute dog on the field. Like carries himself the right way, practices hard, plays hard, lifts hard, like does everything you want with an offensive lineman. And he's just a great guy, like a funny dude, kind of a BSer, but every once in a while he'll turn the switch and snap on something. It's kind of like, all right, got to play out, what type of cue I'm getting today.
Yeah.
Finished up OTAs. He's like, hey, I'm having all the guys over to my place. We're gonna, hang out. We're gonna party. We're gonna just boys be boys, whatever. He sends us the address and we're all he's like, we can sleep over, we can pitch tents if we want, whatever we want to do. And this was kind of like the end of the end of OTA party before we kind of got out of there. And we roll up and it is like it was in Indianapolis. And it was kind of like it was almost kind of like we entered a different place. It was like city, and then like you go down this little path and it's like he's got a little creek and this was like another property he had just bought, which we found out as we arrived. It's like this little creek and it's got like an old log cabin on it, like an old like gross shed, and like, oh, and he goes, what's up, boys? They have like one table set up with some beer and like, they got a fire going or whatever. And it's like, what is this place? Like, oh, we haven't, I just closed on it last week or whatever, a couple months ago, and I haven't had the chance to do anything with it. Like, eventually we'll renovate and do stuff with the land, but this just kind of is what it is right now. And no electricity, no plumbing. And it was just like, we just got together and hung out. We're playing cards and played.
Welcome to the party.
Yeah, it was just like it started getting dark. We got like lanterns and stuff. It was hilarious, but we rolled up and it was like me and a couple of the other younger guys, and we kind of carpooled together or whatever, and we show up and like, there's a handful of guys there already, and they're sitting in the chairs and like, hey, you got any extra chairs? And they're like, oh well, we don't have any.
You end up sitting on a log.
Yeah, right. It was like, well, they're like, can you guys run? Can you young guys run to Costco and go buy some chairs? And we're like, sure. So we
Sure.
pack back up in the car. We're driving to Costco, and they call us like, hey, you want to pick up like 20 pizzas too while you're at it? And we're like, sure, we can do that too. And then hang up. We're in Costco for like an hour trying to figure out what chairs to buy and all this stuff. And we're like sitting on testing out, okay, does this one fit the big body?
Yeah, I was gonna say, because you're big dudes. It's not like you're getting.
Got to test them out. We're
Yeah.
asking the employees to pull some from the top rack and
Yeah.
pull from the back and stuff. And so we're kind
You
of
got to
like,
test load them.
exactly. So we're kind of missing the party a little bit, but we're kind of doing our own thing. It's like we went on a little side quest for this, and then we have like 10 pizza boxes. We got 20 whatever, how many chairs we bought, and then we're leaving. We're like, hey, I got to grab some gas, and they call us back and like, hey, can you get some firewood? We have no firewood here. And we're like, who planned this thing, man? Like,
Yeah, really.
running water. There's no electricity. It was so funny. And we ended up like getting all the supplies and coming back. We had a big bonfire. It was awesome, and it was so much fun. And then at night, everybody's getting kind of hungry. It's not like we were going to go in and cook anything. We already went through those pizzas. I mean, those pizzas were gone right when we got there. And Quentin's like, hey, how about some McDonald's? You guys want me to DoorDash some McDonald's? And we're like, hell yeah, we want some McDonald's. Of course we want some McDonald's. So this guy puts in like a $500 DoorDash order to
Oh
McDonald's.
my gosh.
And there's 14 of us there. So, that's not,
Yeah.
we can put that down, but we're kind of sitting there waiting around. And, everybody had a little, we hung out for a couple hours. So, we're all hanging and having fun. And then he's like, oh shoot, hold on one second. I'll be right back. And he just kind of like wanders off into the dark, like towards the road. And he comes back, and we thought like he was talking to somebody in a car, and we were like, oh, maybe we got a noise complaint or something like that. Maybe we're playing the music too loud, or like throwing stuff or whatever. And he comes back with like a bag, and it's Denny's. It's a Denny's bag. And I'm like, Q, what's going on? He goes, not gonna lie, I ordered the DoorDash to the wrong spot. So it's at my old place. My girlfriend's gonna come and bring it over, but I was still super hungry, so I ordered a couple sandwiches from Denny's. And so he's just over there smashing his own Denny's, and then we're all taking bites off the same sandwich type of thing. And then his girlfriend brings in the McDonald's, and we start killing them. It was like the funniest like night that I can remember. Like it was so goofy. Nothing was really super planned. It was just,
And the wide receivers would have never been able to handle that.
No, I actually think we invited a couple wide receivers. I'm sure they didn't even show up, but
they got lost and got scared in the dark.
In that same room, Danny Pinter, who's kind of he's a swing man. He kind of gets in and does his thing, and he's got this crazy like Bigfoot story. And I'm not a huge, I don't know, I'll hear some conspiracies out or whatever. And like he told this story like first day of OTAs, and it was like I was there. The way he told, and he's like a big fisherman, and like he's a big outdoors guy, and like pretty like super trustworthy guy. Like no reason to just come out and like lie about this story. And he told this story, and I was like, I remember like the hairs on my arm were like standing up. I'm like, whoa,
Oh, yeah.
this is legit. And so they, without him knowing, obviously, they bought a Bigfoot costume and they
Oh,
put
nice.
the rookie Tanner Bortolini. They made him suit up in this thing, and they're like, okay, so you like kind of sneak off, and we'll kind of distract them a little bit, and we'll kind of and then go into the woods and start breaking
Yeah.
branches and making loud noises and all that. Like, and it ended up we ended up scaring them a little bit. I don't think it was as good as it could have been, but it was hilarious. Just like it was just it felt like just a bunch of kids just like goofing off and
Yeah.
doing stuff that was like everybody wishes they could do. It was just
And
it was
this is the Colts. It
yes,
could have been Mount St. Aries Senior High School doing the
right,
same thing, or
exactly,
Illinois
exactly.
offensive line doing it.
Yeah,
It doesn't matter.
exactly. It just kind of felt like the boys being boys and just hanging out. And it was, Hugh got up and was like, "Hey, I just want to say, like, I know we're all, BSing and doing all this stuff." He's like, this is a great group, fun time, blah, blah, blah. It's just great. I'm glad everybody was able to like, and that was the cool thing is I think every single guy on the offensive line was able to make it for at least a little bit, even with guys who had
Yeah.
some of the guys had some small babies at home that they weren't necessarily going to stick around all night. But I think the night ended at like 5 a.m. or something like that, 4
Oh,
a.m. And some of the rookies brought like blow up beds to put in their beds of their trucks. Some guys slept on like the floor in the dark cabin by them. Like it was just kind of a couple of us Ubered home. It was awesome. And then it was just like, yeah, that was it. Like we just kind of
yeah.
left and we came back to help clean up the next morning and everything was kind of already taken care of. Some like the rookies had already kind of done their thing and we were like, all right, well, see you guys in a few weeks.
There we
Have a
go.
great yeah, it was awesome. It was funny and just, but that's the kind of stuff that I quickly realized that that's what makes football fun for me. I love the game. I tell people all the time, like I love the game, but I would say I've never been in love with the game, if that makes sense. There's some people who are that's all they eat, sleep, breathe, drink football, and that's awesome. And I think there's a place for that. But I've always kind of been the guy of like, hey, I love this thing and I love playing, I love doing this stuff, but kind of towards the end, it got to be like, okay, I'm looking for this next paycheck. I don't really know anybody in this locker room. I'm not
Yeah.
playing for anybody particularly besides myself. And that was not a good motivator for me. I could care less about my individual performance unless it has something to do with the guy I'm playing next to and not letting this
That's
guy
right.
down and not, you know what I mean? So I quickly kind of realized that. And I'm like, I don't want to. Part of the reason I stepped away was like, I don't want to ruin the taste of football. I had such a great fantastic memories, great career, built so many relationships. And I was like, I don't want to keep running around, thinking about myself and money and all this stuff. Like that's what I'm all about is the relationship piece. So
Yeah.
stepping away from that, it's like, all right, now I'm kind of able to do that and help these young guys kind of build these relationships early on too. So that's kind of what I do. And I like to try to build that community as best as I can. And if there's one thing about Minnesota and the Midwest is we breed big boys who,
Hmm.
corn fed. We eat a lot of food. We're big guys naturally. So I'm like, there's no better place than to start kind of developing these linemen at an early age than right here. So I just want to give back to this community that's given me so much and do things like this that help get that out there. And it's fun to play offensive line at the end of the day. And what frustrates me is you go to a kids camp and I'm sure everybody's got that experience is like, oh, you're gonna play O line, and the kid's like, I don't
Yeah.
want it sucks. Oh, can I play D line? Well, it's like you're saying that because you don't know it. And I
Yeah.
understand it. You think it's one thing, but like offensive line is so much more than those preconceived notions. And I'm just trying to make it fun for the guys and enjoyable.
Absolutely. So much fun to just drive a guy into the ground and make him go
Right.
where he doesn't want to go, and then
Exactly.
end up
Exactly.
on top of him, and just he knows that
Yep.
rep. It might not happen the next rep, but that
Yep.
rep, he
Yep.
got,
Yep.
and
And
there's something about that. I
your buddy next to you cheering you on while you do it
Yeah.
and laughing his ass off while you know what I mean?
Yep.
Or, getting underneath the piles, scrambling for a fumble, and everybody's just like hitting and grabbing, like just gouging eyes and stuff, and you're just
Hmm.
laughing and you're laying down, getting crushed by somebody, and you're face to face with one of your guys, and you're like, "How you doing, man? This is pretty terrible. I'm waiting for these guys to get," you know what I mean? Like that's the stuff that makes it so much fun for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and part of this whole podcast thing and developing this is it's kind of like bringing community together from all over the place, and I've really enjoyed it. And I'm very thankful for the guests we've had and for you taking time out of your schedule and to talk about the stuff that's important to you. It's important to me. And I think the insight into how that offensive line room works is valuable. And I think that anybody that has a chance to look more into it should do so. And again, Lewis, I'm super thankful for you and you sharing your wisdom and your experience with me today. What more can be said than if you don't know, you don't know, but you should try to know, because it's a lot of fun and a lot of good dudes and a lot of good memories will be made hanging out with the
100%.
offensive line for sure.
100%. And I appreciate you, giving me the platform to do this. And again, building that culture and kind of doing it your own way. And I appreciate that. I'll always be a resource, and, anything I can do to help and continue to build this for you, and whatever you need. I'd love to come back on and talk shop with more people and whatever it is. So, yeah, I appreciate you and appreciate the time today.
Absolutely. Well, if you're anywhere in the Minnesota area and you want to look up line of scrimmage, do so, and or the training house, and get in touch with Lewis, and he can get you out there and get you in a good stance and get you those steps down and teach you how to be a better offensive lineman. And as we get done today, thank you again, Lewis. And remember, if you can master the trenches, you'll win the war. Hope you're enjoying Trenchometry. Assuming that you are, please hit that like button and subscribe. Remember, master the trench, you win the war.